I believe. Oh, there we go. We're live. Initializing took a good few seconds.
Yeah, it did.
Well, hey guys, we are here live in the Content Hacker community. I'm so excited. If you're joining, please let us know in the comments. Say hello so John and I can say hello to you too. I am here co-hosting this with John Pratt, our head of success. John, tell us a little bit about what you do at Content at Scale.
Yeah, so right now, especially with all these new features that people are very excited about, we're trying to keep up with like different learning styles of people, and that's where these webinars help so much because there's Q&A, it's real time, one-to-many video, right? And so what I am really racing to help with and do is making sure that your workflows are way faster by using Content at Scale.
Yes, love it. And that, like, just like John said, there's no better way we can do that other than like getting on this, making a live stream happen, doing a webinar, and then sharing with you what we see is working, and then listening to you guys. So we want to do this more and more for sure. If you're in the community, expect this. I'd say at least once a month. And we're going to pick your brains as well as we hope you can pick ours. So very mutual setting there of brain picking. So today's session is all about some crazy stuff, you know, in the content industry. Content marketing is its own industry, but then content creation touches so much. I know we have Joe here. He runs Top Click Joe. He has he's an adapter of our AIO approach. So he has a whole branch in his company where he has people offshore that are producing content using Content at Scale. So it's that AI first approach where you're no longer sitting at the computer looking at your blank draft. That's gone. That's what we believe. I, as a decade-long writer, I believe that era it's the old ancient Stone Age now because of how amazing AI is and what we can actually do with it in content. So that said, I'm going to start sharing. Too excited here, John. Oh my gosh. Diana watching, she does the same thing. I love it. Where we just get so excited, we kind of say the wrong words. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get right into it. Joe says he hired 4 more writers. That's amazing. Joe, will you share your website in the comments? I want people to see what you do. Joe is really amazing. I think one thing I see that he excels at that is really propelling the business forward, first of all, innovation, you know, adapting to this, because you really can get so much leaner and more profitable and honestly deliver better services whenever you have this AI first approach, which is the new way, right? The old way. We're going to share both today. But also Joe really prioritizes good customer service and listening to customers. And that as well will never die. That is just something I think more and more as we go into an age where AI is going to improve so much of everything that we do. What will make us stand out is, in fact, focusing on providing an exceptional human service. So yes, AI is how we build our business, but how we deliver that has to be the human touch. And I think like people are going to look for that more and more. And what's amazing is AI will actually free us up to do more of that, to actually sit down and have more lunches with people, more one-on-one time. That's what I see that's really beautiful about all of this. So I just think there is, you know, call me the optimist, but I think AI is amazing. And I think leaning into it is how we can actually build better businesses than our competitors, get ahead so much further, and then actually serve our customers better because it frees us from doing all that menial work we didn't really want to do anyway. All right, so let's go into the visuals here that I've got for you about the old versus the new way of doing SEO content. And John here from our success team was with me through the agency days. I think, when did you find me, John? Was it 2017?
So it was 2017. This will validate the whole thing. Is I Googled like something about content strategy, and you were ranking in the top, not once, but twice. And so I started call, and I'm like, well, it sort of validated itself already because I found her on Google, and she teaches people how to be found on Google. I was hooked right away. And I still am. So there we go.
I love it. Oh, yes. What you said, not once, but twice. If I'm teaching content strategy, I better know my content strategy. And so that's something, I love that we're doing here at Content at Scale. We are a tool built for at scale human-like content production. And so our main form of marketing, I'm about to show you in the next few minutes as well, the analytics on that. Our main form of marketing is in fact organic traffic from our content. So I really believe in that. If you sell content services, then rank your site for 1,000 keywords. It's the best marketing you could ever do. And Content at Scale can do both. It can be what you sell and how you sell what you sell, which is just so cool. Okay, so this is something that I was actually doing for 10 years. What we're looking at right now, which is the old and broken way of doing SEO content. I'm going to see if we can actually go full screen here. Okay. So what this took in I want to say years ago, but really it's just like months ago because of where we're at, has not been around for long at all. We're truly in revolutionary times where AI, as of this January and right now, November, December, we're going into an acceleration we've never seen in any industry in our lifetime, where in 1 year we have what AI experts are saying is 50 years of tech growth. So that's pretty incredible just to think about that, and how I see it is I am so grateful and thankful to be alive in this era where we can actually get ahead by tapping into this. And I know there's so much fear mongering. I know it's not the topic of our conversation today, but I do want to speak to that for 1 second. There's so much we could listen to about things that are coming out that are scary, potential AI gone rogue, potential Skynet level things, AGI, artificial general intelligence. But if you focus on that, I think you lose sight of the good that it will bring to humanity, which is quite honestly solving a lot of problems that were broken and problematic anyway. Workflow problems. And I was talking to so many people just today. My daughter started at a new school. We met with a superintendent. I somehow got looped into volunteering to create an AI course. Don't even know how that even happened, but it happened. It was a great conversation. And then I went to the chiropractor and we had the same conversation there. And he's like, what's crazy about this is that in work, we're in this time, we're in an era where people are more lazy, more entitled than they've ever been because they have access to more than they've ever had access to. We are quite honestly born in an age where we have a lot of things that people never had till this age. So what if work changes this drastically? What if people have to learn how to upskill and reskill? And what if that's actually a good thing for what's happening in society, which is people are getting way too lax at their jobs and they don't have creativity and they don't have inspiration because it's not new. And so I actually thought our chiropractor made a really good point there. So props to him. I thought that was a great point. So we could really have some fear about where AI is going, or we could look to what it's going to do for the future of work in an efficiency improvements. And just that alone, that's where I'm living these days. That is the brightest future I can ever paint for the future of work. And yes, there's problems from it, just like when the internet came, problems, right? Black hat SEO, cesspools of off-market domains and weird stuff and bad stuff. And yes, that occurred too. But then we also got the internet. Did we lose sight of that? No, we don't. The internet is a super highway for information, for learning, for knowledge, for growth, for business, for revenue. So anyway, that's how I think we should see AI, is look for the good, and you will see this is one of the most incredible things that has ever happened in our lifetimes. And so you're here, you're taking advantage of that. And I cannot commend that enough. Only 14% of America has actually adapted to knowing what ChatGPT is. At every turn, I'm teaching my friends, my child's teachers, anyone I meet, how to use ChatGPT, because I just think we need to spread the general awareness of it. And then from that awareness, innovation can happen. Okay, so
is that it's still very early, which is kind
Yes,
of luxury
right?
for all. Yeah.
And we don't realize that because we're, especially us here, like we're immersed in it, we're hearing about it, we're learning, but we're actually part of an innovation just by being in front of it because so few people aren't. So you raised a great point there, John. Yeah. So, I mean, it's innovation itself just to pick up ChatGPT, just to pick up content at scale and know how to use it. So that is noteworthy. So the old way of doing SEO content, which we're looking at in this visual, took a lot of humans. And we were on a webinar with some amazing people led by Diana Richardson yesterday. And we heard firsthand how expensive this model gets from people that have ran agencies, including myself. I ran one, we had 100 people, and we delivered over 40,000 projects to clients in 10 years. Our average project count was anywhere from 200 to 300 a month. And just one project could have 50 pages in it. So we did a lot of content. And I can tell you, there's no room on this graph to draw the mess that this would become at an agency of that size. Like, I can't zoom out and draw enough little squiggly lines and little green writer potentials because that's what we had to go through. And I'm actually going to share with you in another second a spreadsheet that I used to manage my agency. So you're going to see how crazy it gets, but let's live in the people for a minute. So the process that we did before AI came along was typically something like this. You can match it up to different points. You can kind of rearrange this, but this is what most agencies did. This was their timeline. So everything starts with research. That was the keyword gap analysis, looking at your Google Search Console, finding opportunities. That's typically where we started. And most content agencies, I can tell you, we sold it all. We sold social media, we sold webpage, pillar, blog, but the meat of our content for 10 years, I was actually surprised, was always the long form blog. I mean, we had huge brands coming to us. We had small mom and pop, and they all knew that the blog equaled traffic. And I think something else really good that we heard yesterday on that amazing webinar Diana put together is that the blog itself as a naming convention is dead. Like, it's not the blog anymore. It's a learning hub. It's an article destination. It's a knowledge library. So that's how to think of the blog, but it's still called the blog. So maybe that'll change, but for now, that's how we know it. So we're going to keep to that name. But that was what we sold primarily. And I was surprised. Year after year, I'm like, I wonder if this will change. Nope. Every time we were approached by big companies that had budget for content and they knew they needed traffic, they went to the blog. And Joe here doing pillar content, like that was a piece of it too. The landing pages, the web pages that you do along with the blog. So this process would apply typically to a blog or a landing page because that's what we did. So research is where you start. Once you have some research done, then you take that to the client. From there, you start building the brief. Once you have approval, clients wanted to see the brief as well. So, and I'll show you what this process looks like revamped because this is broken 100%. So after the brief was reviewed, sometimes you've got to throw a client call in there. At one point we were dealing with clients like Fiverr, and there was just multiple decision makers in companies of that size. So whenever you're reviewing a brief, it could be 4 decision makers on that call. Got messy. And then from there, you go straight to content creation. And that's where things got very difficult running a content agency or doing this at scale, even if you weren't doing an agency, because what you had to do is go either create or find a pool of writers. And we're talking at scale here, right? So this is like 50 pieces of content at a month, maybe hundreds, maybe 100. So when you had that much content, you had to go either create a writer pool of your own, a talent pool, or go tap into an existing one. And for us as an agency, we hired individual writers. So how we hired those writers, all different sources you can think of. And it was a full-time job just to find, hire, and train those writers. And then when they went missing, or they broke under the workload, or they just didn't want to work anymore, they got tired of writing, then you had to bounce around, find additional people to send that writing assignment to. So this thing got really crazy. And it was the hardest part of this entire pipeline, was the actual creation of the content. Then once you actually got the content created and you heard the angels sing and you were like, finally, the blog is written, because that in itself was a feat back in the day. Back in the day. Before AI came along. We're just talking months ago here. Then it went to QA. And QA was responsible for making sure that content aligned with what the client wants. And for us, it was things as simple as making sure the brand name was spelled correctly, all the way to the tone, and making sure that we had empathetic statements in the content versus derogatory statements. So we had like all kinds of rules and rubrics here for reviewing the content. And then once it passed QA, then it finally was able to get published. And at this point, it would sometimes just go live without review, or we'd set it as a draft and the client would be responsible for reviewing, which would add another step, because you got to get the content published to actually have this complete. And that in itself was another feat. So you got to copy paste. You got to go from Word doc or Google Doc to WordPress. You got to fill out the meta, the Yoast section. You got to write a meta title description, fill out the tags, all that stuff. So you're working in multiple tools with this whole process as well. You're doing a lot of copying, pasting. And we had a full-time content manager responsible just to make sure that the tools and the content produced with those tools were all in sync together. So is this the right tool to use? Do we have the login for it? Are we taking the Google Doc to WordPress? We had somebody responsible for each point of that, because that in itself, if a writer left a zip somewhere inside the CMS and we didn't know where it was, well, then content didn't go out. So there's just so many points here that created variables where this is truly a broken way. So I'm going to share with you the new way of doing content. John, I can't see my screen. Are we getting any questions?
Let's see the chat. Joe was watching in anticipation at the top of the hour, and he dropped his URL as well. He's also changing his blog name, by the way, just like we talked about, to Learning Center. So great
I love
tip.
it.
Yep.
Oh, that's great, Joe. Good stuff. Well, we will carry on. And if you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get to that at the end of each section. So I want to make sure I address all your questions. So let's go into the new way of doing content, because what we can do is take that broken process and really create something special and different, and kind of throw out a lot of steps, a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of people management, which was, when we look at that old way of doing content, that was one of the hardest pieces of this. Remember, was the people management, the content creation. So if we take an AI tool that actually works, functions well, produces content at a human-like level, that makes all this possible. I can't stress that enough. And it's hard because, sometimes it just sounds like a content scale plug. So I got to really educate on this part. And I'm doing that in the keynotes, the talks that I'm giving. But I can tell you right now that LLMs, as they stand by themselves, which is ChatGPT, Claude, Bard, those are single LLMs. They're getting better and better. That's your GPT 3, 3.5, 4, and now 5. So they're getting better and better. But what they lack are parameters. So think of it like the alphabet that's developed without words, sentences, etc. You just have the alphabet. You can't really do that much with it. That's what the LLM is. And so when people go to ChatGPT and they think that they can create all their content with it, replace 10 writers, publish content straight to WordPress, copy and paste, that is inaccurate thinking. Because if you do that, it can actually set you back. That content is often plagiarized. And again, it's a single LLM. It wasn't built for that. LLMs pull from the internet at large. They are just a content mine. It's something that has eaten up the entire internet. So it's taking all of that in existence and spitting out based on a prompt. It's detecting and generating. So what content at scale does that's completely different, and there's very few tools doing this, but there are some, and I truly believe it's the entrepreneurs creating on the backs of the LLMs that are going to give us the innovation we need. And if you look at history throughout time, industries throughout time, whether it was the Industrial Revolution or education, you'll see this. You'll see entrepreneurs leaving an incredible touch on that innovation that delivers a functional solution. So that's why I don't like to say go use content at scale, but I also like to say go use content at scale because it's an actual functional solution. We're not just plugging something here. It's very, very different than picking up Claude, ChatGPT, Bard, and just opening and prompting and hoping your entire content calendar is finished in a few minutes. It's just not possible with those single LLMs. So when you have the right AI tool, like content at scale, what you can do is do everything from that one platform. And specifically, that's what content at scale does, because you can start with the keyword analysis. You can go straight into the content brief. You're doing all of this in one platform. You're not opening up any other tool. You're not paying for any other tool. And then you can go straight into client review. You can share with them the platform link because content at scale allows for that at the agency level. So you can even have the client review straight from the AI platform, but it's white labeled for you. So they're not even logging into this third-party tool, they're logging into your platform. So that is how, I mean, I'm telling you right now, if I was to go start a content agency, this is how I would do it. I would build it around content at scale and content at scale's functionality. So once you have those steps done, you're doing them right in the app, then you literally click a button, as you all know, that use this tool, write post, and it's generating content that is human-like. And then from there, you have one human, the AIO writer, that can do anywhere from 2 to 10x, sometimes 20x more content. Now, I don't like to just throw a number out there and say, maybe you can 20x your writer. I think that is like such an overused, gimmicky headline. I actually like to tell you what our writers are doing. So we have writers at different levels that have more expertise and more experience in writing that are capable of running this machine and doing a ton of content, because that is what they've done for years. They've written a ton of content. So those writers can actually 20x their output. But the writers that are new, like, we have to have patience with them. We can't expect that 20x number. So I can't stress enough, make sure when you're hiring an AIO writer, leave them to the level that they're at. And if you can, pair them up with somebody that's senior that knows how to run the machine faster. And I'd love to hear, Joe, will you let us know in the comments a little bit about how you're doing that? Because I know that you're doing that with your writers right now. Joe has a team of Filipinos structured as AIO writers, which, by the way, he'll be sharing his entire process on our stage next March here in Austin, Texas. So come to Content Hacker Live to hear Joe share his process, meet Joe, meet our team, and some amazing speakers we got lined up. It's going to be an awesome event. So, but I'm interested to know, Joe, if you have the senior, the more expert trained AIO writers, the ones that have been doing it longer, if you pair them up with new ones and you have them kind of work together. So let us know in the comments for sure. And then John, maybe you can ping me because I can't see the other screen. I definitely need to get multiple screens at one point.
Yeah, I was going to drop that Content Hacker Live, the event link in there as well. And while Joe does that, or while he, addresses that, to the same tune, what we see is, and this was warned about by I believe OpenAI early on, is that AI itself will not. It'll only make you a faster version of you. And so it's still important to upskill. It's still important to get good with these tools. Now with ChatGPT by itself, like throwing it back to the other big events like the Industrial Revolution, just because we can now, precisely shape steel how we want it, and with structural integrity and all that, doesn't mean that everyone should go out and do that, right? You need to apply that. You need to make, mass-produced shovels or whatever, bicycles, whatever they were creating back then. Similarly, you don't necessarily have to go use ChatGPT, just this raw LLM. You can use content at scale to as a use case for the LLM, and it's all custom built for a purpose. So yeah, we've seen that AI will make you faster, but yeah, you still have to learn what we see on the screen right now.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point. I think a phrase you said, the raw LLM, it's hard for people that are approaching this for the first time to understand the nuances here, and I don't blame them. Like, there's no guidebook that's been written. We can't expect there to be. This is a new industry. We are literally walking in a new vertical of tech. So it's I think it's going to be up to us to help those watching. If you know the difference here, keep spreading the word. Like, tell people there are so many risks that come with ChatGPT. For example, whenever you're prompting it, everything you feed it in that prompt then ends up in the public LLM. So that is something that can then be regurgitated back to anyone else that is seeking the answer you provided in your prompt. So one thing that I don't do, for example, with ChatGPT, and I will never do, and I did a video about this in January, I saw this as a huge issue, was I would never take book content that I'm writing and use ChatGPT to work on that book content, because it essentially puts my book content, which I haven't published yet, out in the open before I've even published it. And that is a problem. I don't want my book out there in any way or shape until I actually hit publish on my own book. I want to own the royalties, the intellectual property. Conversely, it could be said that if you have books out there in the open, it's a good thing to feed the LLM. So you can look at it both ways. Like, how can I feed the LLM so it knows me, my knowledge, my content, and it will feed on public information. So if you have a lot of content out there, it will learn your style without you training it at all. But if it doesn't know your style and you're not that public figure, you can train it on your style. But content at scale does this in a way where instead of like working with the alphabet, you're working with defined parameters. You're taking sentences and words that have been structured. So that's a very abstract way to put it. But what that means is, in this tool that was built, you simply just work with that tool to get what ChatGPT won't do without a series of advanced prompts. And I would even say, and I've tested it extensively, trying to get undetectable original content, even after a series of prompts, you're still not getting content that is human-like, and you're still going to have to do, I would say, about 5 times more work than the output you get with content at scale, which is an AI tool with 3 different LLMs and parameters built into it to guide that output. So it's a huge difference. I think it takes a lot of thought and time to understand it, but it's worth thinking through that.
Joe dropped some secret sauce here in the chat. He says, we start with 1 blog per day regarding his team, right? 1 blog per day when they start until they get good, about a 2-week period. So my senior writers, he says, can do 4 great blogs per day. The way my team is training is the new team members stay near my senior writers, just like you were saying. So the new writer leans on one of the senior writers at a time.
So smart. Well, that's how to accelerate your AIOs so much. And you see what John did. Joe. You see what Joe did. He removed himself from that process. That's another really, really smart thing. As a business owner, we get lost in the trap so easily of, well, I need to do this thing, instead of, well, how can I stand back and empower this amazing team? And Joe, you got to tell us in the comments how many AIOs you now have. So you got to tell us that. So Joe has his team now where it's more than 1 AIO, right? And what he can do is, when he has a new person who doesn't know how to use content at scale, but he's got a lot of clients that he needs to serve, and he's got to run content at scale more times, then he can have that human come in, and he doesn't have to sit there and train that human at all. And what's even better is the senior, the more experienced AIO will probably be a better trainer anyway than Joe for that new AIO writer.
Got 9 of them now.
That's amazing. Very cool. So, and I'm curious, for those of you watching, have you built an AIO writing team at all. And it could be just you right now. I don't know if we have Francisca watching. I know she's building her consultancy. So it might just be you right now. And if it's just you, then what you can do, quite honestly, because this is what I've done, and I've also seen some of our top users doing this, is you can literally blend these two people. Ready for this magic? And this is for our solo consultants, not Joe. Joe's building a 6-figure a month agency. That's where you want more people, but you don't need a million. But look at this for solo consultants. We literally can have one person doing both of these roles. And that person at the start could be you running this whole thing without a single writer, without additional staff. That is unbelievable, because just to get to this stage of content getting done, I mean, if you're running the machine, and let me share with you what the output looks like so you can see what we're working with here. I'll share with you a post that I had it right yesterday from a YouTube video. How will AI help marketing? So this is why I'm telling you, you don't need a ton of humans, because the quality of the output is this good. And then you're also working with non-duplicate content, zero plagiarism. And that just means, plagiarism is anything that's been swiped from the web, copy paste, which is a big problem in content itself. It's been a problem even before AI. Whenever I hired and trained writers, there was this fallacy out there that, oh, well, I can just take content, send it in and get paid. And they didn't write a word of that content. They literally swiped it. So we're dealing with no new problems here. AI is the same problems, AI content. We're dealing with the same problems we always have, just in new ways.
I remember seeing how quickly you and John created this content, after the video. This was this week.
Yes, yesterday.
It gives you information that you didn't necessarily even know. Whereas if I go, I've found this a lot, found a little abstract, but in my year now of using like AI every day, ChatGPT came out, what was it, a year ago or so?
Yes, a year ago.
When depending on how I prompt it, I'm feeding it certain context, so it's going to give me to some extent information that I already know, or it's going to like validate how I'm asking the question. Like it becomes an echo chamber between me and it. And so it's a lot of the time, again, depending on how I ask, giving me stuff I already know. Whereas with content at scale, it's going out and researching these top ranking SERPs that are actually performing, they're actually published, right? That means so it's vetted by search engines. It's actually helpful to people, and it's stuff you might not know. But anyway, that's just one thing I was thinking about while looking at this content here.
Yes, that's a really good point. And so what John's referring to is inside content at scale, there's a SERP analyzer. So it goes real time and it studies what's at the top of Google. That's your search engine results pages, SERPs. And it looks at that and it breaks that down, parses that, puts that into the content the LLMs are writing. You do not get that with Claude, ChatGPT, Bard. Even though Bard is real time, it's still not doing that extra research step. And that is a step. Whenever I had writers in my agency, we actually created videos training the writers how to do that. And it was a piece of our review process, our QA process, and then the manager's task as well. Are the writers actually adhering to this? Are they going and Googling real time for this information, pulling in, getting more resources? And I think, looking at all the content, and like, here's an example, by the way, of why we still are needed. Thank God. God, it's late some fluff. That was a duplicate section. So you're AIO writer, but they don't have a lot of work to do, right? Look at what they're working with. This is amazing content. And so what I've seen as opposed to running a writing agency in the past versus working with this content, what I have seen firsthand is that sometimes AI will generate a better table of contents, which is your subheaders, your H2s, your H3s, the meat of your content. It'll generate a better list here than what my writers have done in the past. Because if you think about it, the process that AI has and the data it has available to it is more than a single human ever will have in their lifetime. It's more than an army of humans will ever have. I mean, it went from a few 100 million to a billion, and now we're looking at 1 trillion data points that AI has access to, GPT-5 models. So just the fact that it can do that, right? And it's got all that knowledge available. But again, like we're talking about the curation of that knowledge. And if it's just regurgitating, then it's garbage. So we have a tool here that's been built specifically to look, break down what's at the top of Google, look and find that stuff, and then put it into the content it's writing, which is very different than just pulling from the internet at large, right? So this has been trained to look at the top 10 SERPs, analyze that, and then put that into the content. And that's why we have case studies from Top Click. Joe's here, from John Jantz, where they have published straight out of our AI, which is a t-shirt slogan. I'm wearing the shirt. John, are you wearing the shirt? Is John wearing the shirt?
I don't think I own any other shirts. No, just kidding. Yeah.
Duh. Is John wearing the shirt? Don't even ask. Yeah, I have about 10 of these shirts, just saying. Yeah, we're a bit obsessed, guys. But anyway, so the point is, whenever you take this straight out of AI, you get results. And Joe has seen a ranking. You got to tell us what your latest success story is in the comments, Joe. I know he's seen a ranking in 2 weeks from the content that his AIOs put together. And then we had John Jantz get a ranking for a keyword that was a 5-word string, something like this one, how will AI help marketing? So it was a more niche keyword, which you have lower competition there, but still you can create content that doesn't rank at all because that content's not good. So John Jantz used our tool, was ranking for that 5-word keyword, he said within days on his website in the top 10, and then it went to the top 3, and then he actually went to number 1, and he did like 10 minutes of editing. So the fact that you can get results just like that straight from this, I mean, there's art and science to it. You know, it's not a guessing game to create content that ranks in the top of Google. It's a formula, it's a science, and that's what this tool is specifically built to give you. So that's why this whole thing works. Like I can tell you, this is a house of cards. Looking at the old way versus the new way, this is a house of cards to promise you. If there wasn't a tool like Constant at Scale, and I mean, that's why like I am, you know, John and I, we don't have any other t-shirts. We're a little bit obsessed because like this thing exists. It is revolutionizing content as we know it. But what's interesting is we are really in the early stages here. And so like, I can't tell you how many agencies are still doing the broken way. Like I saw one in my feed last week. I actually took a screenshot, was talking about it on another training. They did not adapt. I knew that this agency owner was resistant. I had heard him say that. Well, you know what happened last week? He laid off over 60% of his team because they lost clients. And what's interesting is in Content at Scale, in Content Hacker here, we have a lot of early adapters, which is really cool. And so we get to hear stories. And one of the stories I've heard, which I really like, one of my favorites, although there's so many, I know Joe has some great ones too. One of the stories I heard that just blew my mind was from Chris Kirksey, who runs direction.com. So he's here in Austin, Texas. We hang out. We kind of go to the same masterminds. So he's showing me like text from his clients, you know, real time, which is really cool. And he's like, you know, early February, right after he met me, was when he adapted to this because he saw what we're talking about. I mean, guys, this is incredible. When you can go from something that took so much money, time, but was a staple because you got to do content. If you don't do content, you don't have marketing. But there wasn't a good way to do it. So AI is completely revolutionizing that because content is easy. What? Content is not easy. What? Again, revolutionary. So when Chris Kirksey adapted, what he basically did was he went to his clients and he's like, how happy are you with our writers? And what would you think if we go and we use this tool? And he actually linked to Content at Scale, told them the tool, and he said, we're going to run it. Okay. So you're still going to have a human behind this tool. But we're going to run the whole thing and make sure the content's good. Not a single client resisted. Not a single client was against it. Instead, what he heard was this, I quote, he read the text. Chris, we were wondering when you were going to start using AI. Half these writers are bad anyway. Are you kidding me? That's brutal to hear, but oh my goodness. And Chris is like, oh my goodness, I loved my agency owner we worked with. I just adored her. I'm never going to say anything bad about her, which I appreciate. I love working with people like that, because in the end, we don't want people fired. We don't want people gone. We want to have better businesses providing better services, delighting more humans, and then offering different opportunities to writers. That's what we're about. So when Chris said that, and then he changed his entire model, now he's calling it human-powered AI content services. It was amazing to see no one resist it. And I think the fallacy is, well, clients don't want AI. That's not true. Have you asked your clients? Because they don't care. Just like Google.
Yeah.
They just want good content.
It's sort of new though, right? We're just getting to that curve, because rewind 1 year, they were sort of scared of it. I mean, some still are, but they were way scared of it. I do want to mention, Joe said regarding ranking, that they're working with in a certain space. They usually rank within 48 hours. Oh. And then also on the second page, the first week for the actual seed keyword, like the generalized huge competitive keyword in that niche. Yeah, I'd be remiss without mentioning that. He said that in the chat. But yeah, regarding the agency's clients who actually are fearing AI less and less, we're actually getting to the very beginning or maybe the middle of this curve. I have an anecdote to share. I haven't really dug into the data, but there was an agency that I know about. They're actually losing clients because their clients are going out and using AI themselves because the agency was too slow to adapt. It's like a super sad story. Yeah. Now, the next thing that the clients are going to find out is that they're going to have to learn how to use AI and the strategy at the same time, right? So a new problem, right? That's ahead of the curve that we're on now. And so I think that agency, as well as many agencies, can still win back clients if they first learn the right AI tools to use, and then second, keep their marketing like overt, right? They're overtly using these tools. It'll soon become, instead of a detriment, a selling point. So we've seen that. Joe also says, you could always invite me for a quick testimony. He says, I promise not to talk for an hour straight.
Oh, we love you. So Joe, you're our featured speaker on stage, and we're totally going to do a live with you in here. I want to do a whole thing where we kind of allow you to teach some of this. I think that'd be cool to do even before the in-person event. So yeah, you bet. I mean, we need to pick Joe's brain. I think the things he's applying and building in his agency are unbelievable. He's got an eye for this. So yeah. And if you guys want to hear from Joe, drop in the comments and just say Joe. And we will do another training with Joe from Top Click Joe.
Done. I myself dropped in the word Joe.
I'm going to too. Yeah. So I think it's just crazy whenever we can get really stuck in our own heads. And that's where I want to encourage you. If you're watching, you're just adapting, you're thinking about adapting, thinking about offering this. It's so easy to get stuck in our heads and say, well, this thing could replace me. I don't know about charging for AI content. I don't know about implementing this process. And that's something we'll have Joe speaking to as well in future topics here, because, he's totally overcome that. And that's something that really it's an obstacle that you might have created yourself, because the truth is none of this will ever replace a human. You can see like the human and the AI tool are side by side. You can't have the AI tool without the human. And like John's saying, people are firing their content agencies and then they're going to whatever LLM, the raw LLM, prompting it, hoping to get good content. Well, the last Black Friday email I sent did not come from ChatGPT. Let me just tell you that. It was highly, highly personalized content. The last blog I published was 90% content at scale, 10% humanly crafted. And that 10% is actually a critical factor to set that content piece apart from all the other ones. So you got to have things side by side. And the AI won't replace you, but humans using AI will. And that's the truth of the matter. So the quicker you can adapt to this model, the better for you and your business. And quite honestly, your clients too. And I don't know, John, if you could find it and share it. We have a blog about how to build a content agency. Really, it's just an agency, period, where you can offer content at 73% profit margins. And that blog has a case study of how I ran through this process with somebody from our own community, Nancy. She had some life things that came up, so she couldn't continue to run her agency, but it was successful. And she ran this whole incredible lean machine where she had this writer using the AI machine and generating content and then selling that content. And you can sell content still for thousands of dollars if you package it correctly, right? So it's all about the value you add, how well you service that client. Like, that's never going to go away. AI will not replace that. You know, until the day we sell to robots, which isn't going to happen, that's when we all get replaced. We're still selling to people. And so people need people. It's just how you integrate this into your business so you can be more freed up to be that person. That's how you need to think. That's when you win.
It's a great read, by the way, that agency piece. I just dropped it in the chat.
Oh, good. Awesome. Do we have any other questions or comments coming in, John?
Not right now. People are dropping the word Joe.
I love it. Joe, you're in demand, sir. Good stuff. Yeah, we'll have to do a live in here with him. That's going to be awesome. Okay, so we're down to, let me check the time here. Okay, we're down to the last 10 minutes. So this is the model. I'll share the chart link here so you can totally make this your own if you want to like click in here, study it, think about how do you build your model using the same approach. You're more than welcome to. Everything we create is yours to use. And I want to show you some stuff in action here, because I think that's when really paints a picture of, whoa, okay, this, what? So first of all, I want to share with you our traffic from, and let me switch on over to the Content at Scale site. So Content Hacker is around 10K. I got to switch my users here. You can see the Content Hacker site is something we're slowly growing, a moderate but good traffic in the last few days of 5,000. Not terrible. That's fully organic. But I want to show you Content at Scale's traffic, because that's when things get wild. Okay, so here's the Content at Scale website. In the last 30 days, we had 700,000 uniques. 600 of those were new users. Don't mind the conversion piece. We're still building out things like the Looker Studio and that. Got to give our SEO coordinator, Farnaz, a shout out here. She's leading these goals with me and doing an amazing job, just finding topics, keywords, all that good stuff. But what I want to...
Came in.
Oh, go ahead, John.
Oh, yeah. Farnaz is in the house.
Oh, good. Yay. Yay.
And if I suddenly disappear, by the way, it's because I'm going to do another webinar. So pardon me if I suddenly disappear about 5 more minutes.
Oh, yes. Yes, because you're leaving at 10 till and we're right there on time. So, yeah, well, your webinar's here, right, John?
Yeah, right in the community.
Yeah. And I'm going to hang there with John for a bit, guys. So, yeah, you get both of us double time today. Sorry, I'm kidding.
Farnaz, the Content Hacker traffic is 28K.
What? Oh, wow. Okay, that makes sense, because I saw 5K on that number per week. You know, it's crazy. I haven't even looked. And her, as well as Josh, who is my husband, the tech guy behind the Content Hacker site, I know they've been working together on some SEO fixes and maintenance. That's incredible. 28K. That's not traffic to play with, because we were at 10K just a few months ago. Yay. Amazing. Okay. So this is the Content at Scale site, and I want to share with you some of the tools that we used to use to manage the content, because the content itself got a lot of content going on here. It's not what it will be soon. It'll be even more. I'll share with you the back end. You can see 400 posts. We really started doing this in the spring, doubled down on it heavily, got to where we were doing 70 pieces of content per month. Paused it in the summer to do some auditing of the website, back at it. So we're at that same number. with a goal of 1 million uniques outside of our free tool. So our AI detector was actually one of the first one. We were one of the first brands, content at scale, to build undetectable AI content. We were one of the first brands to ever crack that code. No one offered it. It wasn't even a search term a year ago. Isn't that crazy? And now it's a search term, bringing in almost, Farnaz will know better than me. I haven't looked at the keyword number lately, but it's like 500,000 per month are responsible for the keywords around AI detection. That's crazy. Wasn't even a search term before ChatGPT came out. So, I mean, we're talking about a new industry, a new trend, and a whole new type, a whole new vertical of content tools here. So unbelievable. So what you're looking at right now is Airtable. And if you saw my announcement email today, then you know that I actually canceled this tool. And I'm really excited about that because in Content at Scale, in the Content Producer Suite, you now have, in every single project, you now have this tab, the Content Calendar tab. That's brand new. Wasn't here till today. And what this is a way to see at a glance your entire month of content, who's assigned to it, the keywords, and the due dates. And by the way, this also triggers a reminder, an email to the assignee. You can see Farnaz here is leaving comments on this topic, so you can even house the notes. And this is everything that I needed in the past to run my content agency. Like, it's built now. It's here in the tool. It's like, why do I need Airtable to track my content? I don't. I can just go to the calendar view and see all the content we're planning. Besides that, like, I've got my list of all our generated posts. Something I learned a couple of weeks ago, John, you might already know this, is you can go up here to the search bar, type in the name of any content piece you've ever written, and it will search across all the projects and go find it. And that is like such a great way to maintain content versus all the old CMSs. So like whenever I was in Airtable looking for a post, it's actually harder to find my content between this, WordPress. We used to use Active Collab. We also used Google Sheets. And I mean, it just gets crazy to manage high scale content among all those tools. So you now have an entire workflow, the tools to match the workflow, all built in right here in Content at Scale. That's revolutionary. I can't tell you how much. Like, the fact that our entire team can now live in this tool and be organized with our high scale content production is amazing. So goodbye Airtable, canceled it today, saved close to $500 a year. And we've also canceled our keyword research tools because you can now do all of that right here in Content at Scale. You can see the numbers on all the keywords. Now, the one tool I've kept around is SEMrush because I like all the different features in there. But I'll tell you, I don't even use it as much as I use Content at Scale, because whenever I need blog content, I just go in here. Oh, here we go. I got my low difficulty keyword with awesome search volume. This is what I'm going to target on Tuesday. This is what I'm going to target on Wednesday. ChatGPT for marketers, another awesome keyword. So I can find all my data right here. And that's amazing. I can go straight from here to the content calendar, to topic clustering, to creating content. So when we look at the workflow and we think about all the tools, I was telling John about this before. I want to share with you what John dubs a museum piece. I just can't even get over this because
all of it.
Yes.
The whole old process. Yeah.
And John knows because he was there in the agency days when I was building up this thing. All right. So, I mean, look at this. We're just going to scroll and we're going to take a moment of silence. This used to be all of the content management for all of the content that we did. And this wasn't even the actual content creation piece. That lived in a tool called Active Collab. Active Collab was our CMS, much like you see here, where you have all your posts, but it was like 5 blogs assigned to Katie, due on Wednesday. And that human writer was responsible for everything. right? And so then we were moving it around when Katie didn't show up or got sick or something came up or wrote half the content or completely missed the mark. Like, I can't tell you, 80% of content we assigned had to either be reassigned or rewritten. It was that bad. And that problem never got fixed. So all this content tracking, this isn't even the content creation done in another CMS. And this sheet was kind of like our compass, right? Because we had so much content going on. We needed just a central database. And we had a full-time person paid around $50K a month just to manage this piece of it, just to look at the calendar. This wasn't even the calendar. The calendar was in the CMS. But just to look at the line items and make sure that these things were assigned to writers whenever clients would order them in our e-commerce system. So it was a whole thing. It was just pain in the butt, let me tell you. I don't know how I did this for 10 years. I still don't know. When you go to the writers tab, I'll show you real time here. We had 387 writers. Okay. And then when you realize what I was sharing with you earlier, the old versus the new way. I mean, this is a game changer. And Joe can tell you, with a team of 9 AIO writers, what he's able to do for clients and the revenue numbers he and his clients, because his clients are getting results-focused content. That's something we talked about with content at scale. You're getting a piece of content that's actually going to get you somewhere. And your writers are working from that versus from scratch. They have to be trained. They have to know SEO, all those things. That's a game changer. So when we take these 387 writers who we know we have to train, we don't know, we've assessed, and these were writers that we interviewed, trained, and assessed, right? So we did cultivate a pool of writers that were good, but we still had to train them SEO. We still had to train them formatting. We still had to look at the content, and sometimes it wasn't good. It was a whole problem. So this really solves a lot of problems that you can kind of see from the museum piece, what we were dealing with, with large scale content. I just look at this and I'm just like, oh my goodness. I just take a breath because I'm really glad I'm not doing this anymore. John, thoughts? Oh, do we still have John here? I believe he's about out to run the next webinar, which is on in 1 minute. So you know what? I'm going to wrap up here and let you guys go over to that because we are going to head there as well as me. I'll see you on there. And that is the event John runs where he answers questions around content at scale. So I hope you enjoyed that. This was a lot of fun to do. The future is here. Yep, belongs in a museum. Damien asked, how about making content at scale have SEMrush capabilities? Those features are in the roadmap. So we will have better keyword research functionality as well as real-time Google Search Console insights, which is going to be incredible. So all that is coming. Can't speak to it with more detail yet. It's in the works, on the horizon. But it's definitely coming. So you can trust that this tool will have the workflow of a content marketer, a content creator. For sure. All right, guys. Well, I'll see you over on John's stream. Let's head over there. He dropped it in the comments. It's also in the events tab right here happening now. I'll see you there.